Have you ever misplaced $2.3 trillion? Imagine this. It's the eve of a day that will live in infamy, September 10, 2001. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld steps up to the podium and drops a bombshell on the American public. The Pentagon, he announces, cannot account for a staggering $2.3 trillion of its spending. That's trillion with a T. It's an astronomical figure, a number so vast it's hard to wrap your mind around. The shock ripples through the nation. Confusion sets in. How could such an enormous sum simply vanish? Questions begin to pile up. The Pentagon, the nerve center of the United States military, a symbol of power and authority, has somehow lost track of an amount that exceeds the GDP of most countries. And then, the very next day, the world changed forever. September 11, 2001, a day that would eclipse the shocking revelation made just 24 hours prior. As the world watched in horror, the Twin Towers crumbled, and the Pentagon, an emblem of American military might, lay in ruins. American Airlines Flight 77, hijacked by al-Qaida militants, had crashed into the Pentagon, extinguishing 189 lives in a fiery cataclysm. In the aftermath, however, questions began to surface. The lack of plane debris at the Pentagon was unsettling. Where were the remnants of the doomed Flight 77? The conspicuous absence of CCTV footage of the crash added fuel to the fire of conspiracy theories. Skeptics began to question the official narrative, their doubts growing with each passing day. But amidst the shock and grief of a nation, another significant matter seemed to fade into the background. The announcement made just a day before the attacks, the unsettling mystery of the missing trillions. In the chaos and tragedy of 9/11, the missing trillions seemed to be forgotten. But what happened to the missing $2.3 trillion? In the wake of such a startling announcement, the aftermath was, disappointingly, a mix of silence and deflection. Despite the staggering amount of money that seemed to have vanished into thin air, there was no clear resolution or definitive explanation given. The questions kept piling up, yet answers were in short supply. This situation threw a harsh spotlight on the lack of accountability and transparency in defense spending. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a deeply concerning pattern of negligence and mismanagement. The government, however, failed to address the issue adequately. Instead of taking steps towards clarity and rectification, there was an unsettling acceptance of the status quo. The missing trillions became a ghostly presence, a symbol of the unchecked power and unaccountability that seemed to be the norm. It appears the mystery of the missing trillions remains unsolved. So where does that leave us? In the midst of a swirling storm of questions and doubts, our eyes are firmly set on one thing: the need for accountability and transparency in government spending. When we talk about trillions of dollars, we're not just talking about an astronomical amount of money, we're talking about the hard-earned wages of the American people, funneled into the hands of a select few. Especially when it comes to defense spending, it's crucial that every cent is accounted for. We entrust our leaders with the responsibility of safeguarding our nation, but with that trust comes the expectation of accountability. They must answer for their actions. They must ensure that our tax dollars are spent wisely, efficiently, and above all, responsibly. We cannot stand idly by while our funds are misused or, even worse, disappear into thin air. It's time to raise our voices. It's time to demand answers. It's time to demand accountability.